Hi, everybody. I'm Ginny Schuster, and I am so excited to have on Ginnypreneur, who do you know, Mary Brown today. Mary's story is so powerful that I am eager for her to share about boundaries. And boundaries is really a tough subject for people and how to conquer it. So, Mary, would you tell people how did it all start?
Well, I became a boundaries coach mostly because I had overcome my own journey of the disease to please and learned some tools and strategies and wanted to be able to help people pleasers to be able to have healthy boundaries and build confidence and say no when they wanted to say no without feeling bad about it, and say yes to the things they want to say yes to, and really have meaningful self-care.
Oh, I definitely want to hear the background because I'm sure there were hardships that you had to go through in order to reach this point and make it into a business. Take us back and how did it all start?
So I grew up in a big, huge family. We had 5 boys, 4 girls, 2 parents, and no boundaries.
Oh, wow.
So living in such a large family, and we lived in the South, and my mother grew up in a religious home. A lot of people pleasing tendencies were just part of our family culture, right? And I was taught from a very young age that we did our best to help make people feel happy. We took care of each other, but also we took responsibility for each other's feelings. So if someone in our home was upset, then we were taught to stop what we were doing, go see about that person, and stay with them until we made them feel better. Um, and so I just became a people pleaser very early on. I was the best friend to everyone. I was the caretaker in every relationship. I had a lot of leadership already in me. When I got to college, I met a guy who liked me and I liked him, and he wanted to get married, and he asked me to marry him. And I said yes because I didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Ooh.
So we got married, and I was told, like, the marital advice I received was like, do everything you can to make him happy. It's your job to take care of him. He grew up in a very different family, and he was taught to advocate for himself. And what I found was that I was taking care of him, and no one was taking care of me. And the problem with being a people pleaser and not having boundaries is I ended up hating him and a lot of the people around me because I had built so much resentment. So the turning point for me was when I had my first child. And people who've been around a new baby, like, maybe you understand, there's this like serene feeling, right? It was like I
Yeah.
was looking at this tiny baby and I thought, wow, how did I get like this valuable human being, right? Like,
Right.
he's so precious, he's so valuable, and he was like born valuable. He hasn't done anything to earn his worth. He hasn't helped anybody do anything, right? I left the hospital with a week-old baby, knowing that if he was born valuable, so was I, and I needed to change the way that I was treating myself and that I was allowing other people to treat me. So I had this new baby, and I had this, kind of aha moment there about my own self-worth. And then I needed to figure out, like, what do I actually like? What do I want? What are my needs and how do I meet them? And
Yeah.
um and then I needed to figure out how to talk about it because I didn't have the communication skills to
Oh,
to
yes.
speak about it in a way. I mean, the first few times I tried to set a boundary, it sounded like a defiant teenager. I was like, "You can't do that to me," or "One more time and you're
Right.
out." Like, I didn't really have a way to communicate it. And then once I learned how to say it, I was like, "Okay, now they have to do it." Well, no, it's still my job to follow through. And so then I had to learn how to follow through and actually have self-care. And it's been a journey, and it's been, you know, rugged and lovely. And professionally, kind of simultaneously, I became a social worker, and I managed teams of caseworkers, and kind of moved up and up and up and up that social work ladder. But I saw the burnout of the caseworkers, and so I developed a coaching program for them to help support
Nice.
caseworkers. So there was that. And then the next, when I had my youngest child, and I took a break from social work. Um, I just had this beautiful time to really reflect on, what are my gifts? What are my talents? I knew what my skill set was and what I was capable of doing. And I came to this like realization that I had written hundreds and hundreds of treatment plans for people who struggled with mental illness and addiction and abuse and neglect and all of those things. Um, and what I noticed was there was always a woman around that person who was struggling. And I would see there would be like a mom, maybe a mom of somebody with an adult child with a mental illness, or there would be a wife or a girlfriend or a partner of someone who had an addiction, or there would be like a sister or a neighbor or someone. There wasn't support for her because she's not the one with the addiction, or she's not the one with the diagnosis. And so initially that's how I became a coach, was to support women who had a difficult relationship. And over time, of course, it's evolved.
Well, I saw that you started a course,
Yeah.
and why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. So I've been coaching one-on-one for a few years, and that's been lovely and wonderful. And I kind of noticed that the journey of learning boundaries from being a people pleaser to being a boundaries pro really went in 3 steps. And the first was building confidence and deciding from that place of confidence what's okay and not okay for you. The second one is learning how to communicate. So when we're communicating our boundaries, let's just say saying no, for example, right? That's the obvious one that people think of when they're trying to learn boundaries, right? So if you want to be able to say it concisely in one sentence, uh, expressing an appreciation for the person and the relationship, or the common goal that you're working towards, and saying no to the request, you can combine that into one beautiful sentence that's very powerful and works. It works really, really well. And another tool I teach is like the boundary sandwich idea, right? But the idea is like you start with a sentence expressing appreciation for the person, or again, the cause or the relationship. And then you say no to their request, very clearly, no to the request. And then follow up with a sentence about, and I still really appreciate our relationship, and I look forward to seeing you next time, or whatever that is.
So that was 2, communication.
Yep.
And number 3
is following through. So women come to me every day and they say, okay, I told him to stop calling me mean names. And then he still called me a mean name. And so he didn't respect my boundaries. He didn't follow my boundaries, right? And I'm like, oh, sugar, here's the deal. It's your job to follow through with your boundaries. I use a tool called an if-then statement, right? So if this boundary violation is to happen again, then this is what I can and will do to protect and respect myself, right? So that might sound like, if you call me a mean name, I'm going to hang up the phone or end our conversation or leave the room or whatever that is, to protect and respect myself. And so we use a tool called boundary charting, right? So if you could just think of like a simple T-chart, like just make a T-chart on your page, right? And one side says, this is what's okay for me, and this is what's not okay for me, right? Or you could say, I will do these things and I will not do these things, right? And just a simple T-chart. And that is the personal growth work that we do before we start communicating our boundaries. We do all of that work where it's introspective. You do that work alone or with a coach or a trusted person in your life. And really, you have to be empowered enough to decide what's okay and not okay for me, from a place of self-worth, from a place of confidence, and from a place of love and compassion for the people in your world, right?
Right.
And that it's absolutely possible. It's possible to have self-respect and respect for your partner. It's possible to have compassion for yourself as a human being on this journey on earth, and also have compassion for every other person who's also born valuable, right? And it just, boundaries is a learned skill. Nobody comes to the world learning it. And if you didn't grow up in a family that taught it to you, or you haven't had, experiences on earth that have taught it to you, that it's totally okay wherever you're at, because you can learn the skill of boundaries.
Oh, wow. How powerful. So let's talk about your 12-week course.
Yes.
When does that start?
January 12th is the kickoff call. Our first coaching call is the following week, January 19th. I made this workbook. I'll show you. I made this workbook. Can you see it?
Oh, loving boundaries. I love it.
Yes. So it's a workbook. It's got lots of places for journaling and note taking, and each week it's a curriculum based course.
Okay.
And so each week we have a specific lesson content that I teach, and the first half of our time together each week is teaching, and then the second half is coaching. And so you get to learn new skills, and then you get to implement those skills, and it's in a small group. And I've got
Are you doing it on Zoom, virtual?
on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it on Zoom. I've got folks in every time zone and of the United States, and and it's on Zoom. I have done it on Zoom before, and I found that it works really well. We use some breakout rooms so that we have some smaller group discussion, and break out into pairs when there's something a little more deep to talk about. And I found that it works just great.
It gets pretty personal, and people feel trusting over the 12 weeks. I can imagine that there's really a lot of camaraderie there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an environment of trust, of learning, of growth. It's based on the idea that we're all valuable and that we're working on these things together. As a coach, that's where I get really excited and really proud of the work is, every person who has participated in this consistently is reporting more confidence, better decision-making skills, ability to set boundaries, ability to have hard conversations and do it with love, better self-care. All the results that we're going for, we're right on target with. And
how rewarding.
That's amazing.
So it sounds as though you've got a timeline of how often you're going to do these classes.
So yeah, I'm launching now, and I'll actually have two groups. I'll have one that meets Wednesday mornings and one that meets Wednesday nights, because I had some folks who really wanted to do it last time, and I only had a daytime availability, and so I'm going to offer two different time slots this time. Yeah, and I'm really excited. I'm just thrilled that it's been so effective, and that I get to watch women grow and progress and transform, and it's so fun, and
that's so rewarding and speaks highly of your leadership, Mary.
Thank you.
Well, this is so valuable, and I hope that everybody comments, likes, and subscribes to the Who Do You Know. I love learning about entrepreneurs and why it's their passion. That's just the backbone of our country. And look at the passion that Mary has for it. When you find the ideal business, it just makes you want to lead and give back so much value to so many people. So thank you, Mary, for sharing all this great information. And I look forward to having people comment and sign up for your class.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate our discussion, Jenny.